The sand did not just clog everything. It forced its way into the tiniest cracks, like a living thing that wanted to take over everything. It got into the bolt mechanism of his M4, where a single grain could cause a deadly jam, into his ears, where it rustled at night and reminded him why he could not sleep, and even into his soul, where it settled like a heavy film of memories of those who would never come back. Master Sergeant Alex Taylor sat on the edge of a broken concrete wall that had once been part of some forgotten fortress and watched the sun, like an angry god, turn the Syrian desert into a red-hot frying pan. The air rippled with heat, and the horizon melted into a shimmering haze. His M4 lay beside him like a loyal dog waiting for a command, and on his forearm a fresh tattoo stood out black against his skin, one more name in a long list carved by a needle so he would not forget. James Cole, 23 years old, killed by a landmine 3 months ago. That explosion still echoed in Alex's head like ghostly thunder. The air smelled of gunpowder, sweat, and distant smoke from burning tires, the scent of war that had become more familiar to him than any home. "Sergeant, we have a guest," came the voice of Lieutenant Rivers, sharp and sudden as a shot in silence, cutting through Alex's thoughts. He turned his head slowly, as if every movement demanded effort from a body worn down by years of patrols and sleepless nights. A woman was approaching him, dressed in sand-colored tactical clothes that blended into the landscape, with a camera on her shoulder that flashed in the sun and a backpack on her back stuffed, he guessed, not only with gear, but with the stories she planned to pull out of this hell. Her dark hair was tied back in a ponytail that stirred in the light wind, and sunglasses covered her face, but even through them he could see the resolve in her eyes, the same fire he had seen in soldiers before an assault, mixed with something deeper, as if she carried scars inside her that no one else could see. "Sophie Marcello," she said, holding out her hand. Her grip was steady, without any tremor. "Journalist, embedded with your unit for 3 weeks. I hope I do not get in the way too much." Alex did not stand up right away. He just nodded, feeling the sand crunch under his boots, and studied her with the cold calculation that war builds into you. Civilian, but not a rookie, judging by the calluses and the way she held herself. "Great. One more civilian I have to babysit," he muttered, his voice rough from dust, and the cigarettes he smoked in secret to drown out the taste of metal in his mouth. "I was in Mosul, Aleppo, and Raqqa." Her voice was calm but hard, like steel that had gone through the fire. "I do not need a babysitter, Sergeant. I know how to stay in the shadows and not step into the line of fire." "Everyone says that." Alex finally pushed himself to his feet, feeling the ache in his knee, a souvenir from Helmand, where a piece of shrapnel had gone into the joint and stayed there forever, reminding him of every step he took on this cursed ground. Right up until a bullet whistles past their ear. Then civilians become very dependent, like kids in the dark. Sophie slowly took off her sunglasses, as if she were taking off a mask, and he saw her eyes. They were green, with tiny golden flecks that caught the light like shards of sun over the desert, and in them he read the same pain he recognized in every veteran, the pain that hid behind jokes in the barracks and woke up in nightmares. "I have seen people's heads blown off, Sergeant," she answered, not looking away, her voice lower now, as if she were sharing a secret. "I have pulled children from under rubble where the air was thick with screaming and blood. So let us make a deal. I will stay out of your way, and you do not treat me like a doll. Deal, because I am not here for cheap headlines. I am here for the truth that you carry inside you." Something in her tone, in the honest exhaustion mixed with fire, tugged at the corner of his mouth and pulled it upward. It was the first smile he had managed in weeks, crooked and reluctant, but real, like a crack in armor. "All right, but if the shooting starts, you do exactly what I tell you. No arguments, and keep close to the ground. Out here, the ground saves you more often than prayers do." "Deal," she said, holding out her hand again, and this time he took it in a firm handshake, feeling the rough calluses on her palm, the kind that come from work and not from a keyboard. Not an office princess, he thought, and something long dormant stirred in his chest, a faint flicker of curiosity, like the desert had suddenly given him a breath of fresh air. Behind them, the distant thump of a helicopter grew louder as it came in from the main base, and Alex let go of her hand, already thinking about how to fold this woman into the rhythm of his unit, where every new face could become either an ally or a burden. The base was small and cramped, just a handful of shipping containers ringed with sandbags meant to stop shrapnel and snipers. A generator droned nonstop, like something that was never satisfied, tearing apart the night with its monotonous growl, and all around stretched the desert, where the wind rolled sand from place to place as if trying to erase any trace of human presence. Alex's unit consisted of 8 Americans, worn down by years of rotations and lack of sleep, and 12 Kurds from the YPG. In day-to-day life, the Kurds kept somewhat apart, but in a fight they moved shoulder to shoulder without talking, because the language of war was universal. Among them was Howell, a short man with a thick beard that hid half his face and a scar across his left eye that made his gaze look uneven and a little wild. He was Alex's second in command and his translator, the one who always knew where to get cigarettes or water when it ran out, and who could bargain for anything in a local market without raising his voice. That night, they sat by a small fire just outside the perimeter, away from the containers where the others already snored or whispered to each other in the dark. The fire crackled softly as it ate the dry branches Howell had brought from some shattered farm nearby, throwing shadows across the sand that was slowly cooling after a day of heat. Howell was smoking a hand-rolled cigarette made from harsh local tobacco. Alex held a metal mug of coffee that had already gone cold and taken on a metallic taste from canteen water, but he drank it slowly, as if he wanted to stretch the moment of calm. "She is beautiful," Howell said, staring into the flames, his voice low, colored by the Kurdish accent that made his words heavier. "Dangerous. Women like that always bring change, and change here means death." Alex snorted without lifting his gaze from the fire, where sparks shot up and died within seconds, the warmth seeping through the fabric of his pants. "All women are dangerous, especially the ones who come here on purpose." "No, I am serious." Howell turned his head, the scar on his face catching the light. "When a woman like that comes to war, trouble follows. Either she is running from something back home, from a husband, from debts, from herself, or she is looking for something. Sensation, revenge, oblivion, and we already have too many ghosts." "We are all running from something, my friend," Alex answered, his voice low, as if he were talking more to himself while he turned the mug in his hands, feeling the metal warm up from the fire. "Some of us from family, some from memories. At least out here it is clear which way to run. Forward into the bullets." Howell took a long drag, then breathed smoke toward the sky, where the stars were bright but distant, as if they watched all this madness below with indifference. He was silent for a while, weighing his words. "Do you still see him? The boy?" he finally asked, directly as always, without dancing around what hurt. Alex squeezed the mug so hard the metal dug into his palm. For a moment, he thought he could hear that sound again, metal grinding against metal, Laura's scream over the phone when the police called. Jacob, 7 years old, blue eyes like his mother's. When Alex flew home, the coffin was already closed, small, white, covered with flowers he did not even remember. Laura did not speak for weeks. She just stared at the wall. "Every night," he said at last. The words came out heavy, like he was hauling them out of his chest. "And I hear Laura scream. Again. The phone, the sirens, that drunk bastard who walked away without a scratch. And I was in Kandahar, out on patrol, thinking everything at home was fine." "That is why the third deployment?" Howell asked, nodding to himself. "It is easier here." Alex rubbed his knee as the old ache woke up in the night chill. "Out here the enemy has a face. You can shoot back. You do not think about why you were not there, why you did not save them. You just stay alive until morning." Howell shook his head slowly, flicked his cigarette butt into the fire, and it flared and went out. "War does not heal, brother. It only delays. Sooner or later it comes back, and it hits harder when you least expect it. Like that mine under coal. It looked like nothing, and then it was everything." Alex kept silent and watched a spark rise from the fire and vanish in the darkness, like a life that passes in an instant. The generator behind the containers hummed louder, as if agreeing with Howell, and somewhere in the distance a coyote or a dog called out, and the night rolled on, indifferent to their conversation. Alex finished his coffee, the bitterness strong on his tongue, and thought that tomorrow would mean another patrol, more sand, and that journalist with the green eyes becoming part of all this chaos, whether she wanted to or not. The first week passed in patrols and drills. Sophie was everywhere. She filmed the Kurds cleaning their weapons, the Americans playing cards, Alex training the new guys. Her camera caught everything, but she was not intrusive. Sometimes she just sat off to the side and wrote in a notebook. One evening Alex found her on top of a container, looking up at the stars. "Cannot sleep?" he asked as he climbed the ladder. "It is too quiet," she answered without turning. When it is quiet, thoughts get loud. He sat down beside her, leaving a safe distance between them. "What are you thinking about?" "My brother, Marco. He was a photojournalist. He worked in Syria in 2015. ISIS grabbed him in Deir ez-Zor. They kept him in a basement for 3 months. Then," her voice shook, "then they recorded a video." Alex closed his eyes. He had seen the videos. The orange jumpsuits, the knives, the screaming. "I am very sorry." "Everyone says that, but nobody does anything. The war goes on, people die, and the world watches on television and changes the channel. So you are here so people will not change the channel." She finally turned to him, and in the moonlight he saw tears on her cheeks. "I am here because I want to see those bastards burn. I want to film every one of their corpses, every wrecked position. I want Marco to know his death was not for nothing." Without thinking, Alex reached out and wiped a tear from her cheek. She did not pull away. "Revenge does not bring them back," he said quietly. "I know. I tried." "So what does?" "Nothing. Absolutely nothing. You just keep living because the alternative is worse." They sat in silence, their shoulders touching. The wind carried the smell of smoke and something bitter, maybe burnt plastic from a nearby village. "Tell me about him," Sophie asked. "About your son." And he did. For the first time in 2 years, he talked about Jacob, about his laugh, about how the boy loved building with Lego, about their last call over Skype when Jacob had shown him a drawing of a soldier and said, "That is you, Dad." The words poured out of him like blood from a wound, and Sophie listened without interrupting. When he finished, she took his hand. "He would be proud of you. I was not there when he needed me. You were saving other children's lives. That matters too." Alex did not answer. They sat there holding hands until the generator shut off and the base dropped into darkness, lit only by the stars. The mission came on the 8th day. Intelligence reported an ISIS camp about 30 kilometers to the northeast, around 20 fighters, maybe a weapons cache. Command wanted a quick strike. "Go in, clear it, get out." "This is bullshit," Alex said during the briefing. "The intel is too fresh and too exact. Smells like a trap." Captain Jenkins, speaking over satellite link from the base in Erbil, shook his head on the screen. "Intel is confirmed by drones. They are there, Taylor. The mission stands." "Sir, I have a bad feeling about this." "Noted. You move out at 0400. End of transmission." Alex slammed his fist on the table when the screen went dark. "Idiots in headquarters," he muttered, "sitting in air conditioning and playing video games with real lives." "Maybe they are right," Howell said. "Maybe it is a simple operation." But even he did not sound convinced. Sophie came to Alex later while he was checking his gear. "I am going with you." "No. This is not a request, Alex. I am here for this. The world needs to see." He spun around. "The world can wait. This could get bloody." "That is exactly why I am going. People have to see what this war costs." They stood face to face, the tension so thick it almost felt physical. Alex noticed how her chest rose and fell, how the pulse beat in her neck. Was it anger, fear, or something else? Fine, he gave in. But you stay in the second vehicle with the medic, and if I say get down, you drop immediately. Yes, Sergeant, she said, and there was a hint of mockery in her voice, but something warm too. The night before the mission was restless. Alex lay on his bunk, staring at the ceiling. Jacob had been coming to him more often in his dreams lately, not as a child, but as a teenager he would never become. Why did you not come back, Dad? The same question every time. A knock on the door. Come in. Sophie stepped inside and closed the door behind her. She wore a t-shirt and tactical pants, her hair loose. I cannot sleep, she said. And I thought you were not sleeping either. You thought right. She sat on the edge of his bunk. Tell me about her. Your wife. Alex sat up, leaning his back against the wall. Laura. We met in college. She studied literature. I was in ROTC. We got married after 2 years. Jacob came along 3 years after that. She is, a good mother. I was a good soldier. A good husband. I am not sure. Did you love her? I love her. But love is not enough when you are gone 9 months out of the year, when your son does not recognize you when you come home, when your wife cries alone because you are somewhere in a desert shooting at people you never knew. Did she blame you for the accident? Alex took a long breath. No, she blamed herself. She was driving. Green light. He hit her from the side. She could not do anything, but she cannot forgive herself. And I cannot forgive myself for not being there. Sophie took his hand, lacing her fingers with his. Alex, you are not God. You cannot be everywhere. But I should have been there, where it mattered. She slowly leaned in and kissed him, light and tentative, as if she were checking whether he was real in the half-dark of the container, where the air was thick with dust and the smell of sweat, and the only light slipped in through a crack in the door from a distant floodlight on the base. When she pulled back, his heart was pounding like he had just run out from under mortar fire, adrenaline pushing blood through his veins, and Alex could not understand why now, why this woman he had known barely more than a day, with her calloused hands and the marks from her camera strap, had suddenly become the center of his world. Sophie. He whispered, his voice hoarse, as if sand had lodged in his throat, trying to find words to stop this. His mind screamed that it was a mistake, that soldiers and civilians did not mix, that tomorrow there was a patrol, and the day after that there might be nothing. I am not asking for forever, she whispered back, her breath hot on his skin like the desert wind at midday. There was something vulnerable in her eyes, the same thing he saw in the mirror each morning. I am asking for this night, because tomorrow one of us might not come back, or both of us, and I do not want to die without feeling again that I am alive. He knew it was a mistake, knew it would complicate everything, the unit, Howell and his warnings, his own ghosts waiting in the dark. But when she kissed him again, deeper this time, with a hunger that echoed inside him, he could not resist. His arms wrapped around her, pulling her closer. His fingers gripped the fabric of her t-shirt as if he were afraid she would dissolve like a mirage. The kiss deepened, turning desperate, as if they were both drowning in this war, drowning in memories of what they had lost and in fear of what tomorrow might bring, and they clung to each other like the last anchor in a storm. In that surge of emotion, Alex realized why he was so drawn to her. She was not just beautiful, although she was fiercely sexy, with the lines of her body visible, even under tactical clothes, with full, soft lips and the smell of her skin, soap and gunpowder mixed together, stirring instincts he had almost forgotten. It went deeper than that. It was the way she looked at him without pity and without trying to fix him, seeing a man and not just a broken soldier. It was the way her touch reminded him he could feel something other than pain and emptiness. He had not been with a woman in a long time, not since his last leave, with a stranger in a bar near base, fast and mechanical, just to shut down the night. This was different. He did not understand why he was having sex with a woman he barely knew, why he let himself be this vulnerable when he knew it might tear down the walls he had built for years. Maybe it was because in her he saw the same hunger he carried himself, hunger for life, for warmth, for oblivion, if only for an hour. Sex had long stopped being about pleasure for him and had become a way to survive, a way to prove that his body still worked, that his heart still beat for something besides fear. She was incredibly sexy, yes, to the point of driving him crazy, her hips moving with the grace of a fighter, her breasts rising with each breath. But that was only the trigger. What really pulled him in was that in her arms, for a moment, he stopped feeling like a ghost and became real and alive again, and that terrified him almost as much as the desire itself. Clothes ended up on the floor, her t-shirt, his pants, their underwear, all in a heap on the dirty container floor, where sand had already worked its way into every corner. Her skin was hot under his fingers, smooth despite the calluses, and each touch sent a wave through him that washed away the dust of his memories. Her soft, honest gasps were like music that drowned out the ghosts, Jacob's laughter, Laura's scream, Cole's last breath. At first they made love slowly, as if they were learning each other by touch in the dark. Her nails gently scratched his back, his lips moved along her neck where a vein pulsed. Then it was gentler, full of kisses that whispered, "You are not alone," and after that it became urgent and desperate, their bodies moving together in a rhythm that sped up as if they were trying to catch up with lost time. The bunk creaked under them, the metal springs protesting against the weight and motion, but neither of them cared. Outside, the generator droned, sentries walked their routes, and inside this cramped space, there were only the two of them, two damaged human beings looking for comfort in each other's warmth, in sweat and moans, in the illusion that this night could last forever, even though they both knew that morning would bring reality, sand, and bullets. Alex closed his eyes as he felt her shudder in his arms, and for a moment he thought this was worth every risk and every regret that tomorrow might bring, because for the first time in a long time, he felt not emptiness, but fullness, fragile and glass-thin, but real. Afterwards, Sophie lay on his chest, tracing circles around his tattoos with her finger. "How many of them are there?" she asked quietly. 14 names. 15 if you count Jacob. She kissed a scar on his shoulder, a gift from the Taliban in Kunar. "You carry them all. That is my job, to remember." She lifted her head and looked into his eyes. "Who remembers you, Alex? Who carries your pain?" He did not have an answer. They fell asleep wrapped around each other, and for the first time in months Alex did not see Jacob in his dreams. The convoy rolled out at 0400 when the desert was still black and cold. 3 Humvees, 6 people in each. Alex rode in the lead, Sophie in the second vehicle with the medic, Rodriguez, and 2 Kurdish fighters. Howell sat beside Alex, checking the map on a tablet. 30 kilometers. We will be there in about an hour. The road was broken and full of craters from old bombs. The landscape never changed, sand, rocks, sometimes the skeleton of a ruined building. War had turned this land into a graveyard. "Radio is clear," Corporal Jones, their radio operator, reported. "No transmissions in the area." "Is that good or bad?" Alex muttered. "Depends on whether they know we are coming." They reached an observation position to the east just as the sun started to rise. The ISIS camp lay in a shallow valley, a few buildings, a tent camp, 2 pickups with mounted machine guns. Through his binoculars, Alex counted about 20 men. "Matches the intel," Howell said. "A little too perfectly." Alex keyed his radio. "Second and third, hold positions. First moves first. Wait for my signal." They advanced down the slope, using rocks for cover. The terrain was hostile, open ground, not many places to hide. If this was a trap, they would be like ducks in a shooting gallery. At about 200 meters out, Alex raised his hand to halt the squad. Something was wrong. Too quiet. No movement in the camp. "Howell, do you see anyone?" The Kurd peered through his sight. "No one. Maybe they are inside the buildings." Or this is. The explosion tore the morning apart. The ground under the second Humvee jumped as the vehicle was thrown into the air and flipped. Alex froze for a heartbeat, then adrenaline hit. "Mine, medic, to the second." Everyone, take cover. But the trap had already sprung. Gunfire poured from the camp buildings. Not 20 men, closer to 50, maybe more. Rounds snapped through the air, smashing into rock and metal. Ambush, Jones screamed. We are in an ambush. Alex emptied a magazine toward the enemy positions to give his people time to find cover. Third, cover second, is anyone alive? The radio crackled. Rodriguez is hit. Sophie's voice came over the net, tight but controlled. One Kurd is dead, the other is unconscious. Stay in the vehicle. We are coming. The next 15 minutes were hell. Alex led his people under fire, using smoke grenades and short rushes. Corporal Mills went down with a bullet in his neck, choking on his own blood. Howell grabbed him and dragged him back to cover. When they reached the overturned Humvee, Alex saw Sophie. She was pressing a bandage against Rodriguez's gut, her hands slick with blood. Her camera lay broken to the side. How much ammo? Alex shouted as he reloaded. 3 magazines, Jones answered. Call for support. We need evac. But the radio was dead. The blast had wrecked their main set. Damn it. Sophie looked at him, her face pale but set. What do we do? We survive. Howell crawled up beside them, his face grim. Alex, Rashid is over there. One of my men. He is signaling them. What? I saw him. He is using a mirror, sending signals. He is a traitor. Alex felt his blood go cold. Betrayal. One of their own. He risked a glance and saw Rashid, a young man barely 20, crouched behind a rock about 10 meters away. Something flashed in his hand in the sun. Cover me, Alex said, and started crawling toward Rashid. Rounds still cracked across the rocks, but the fire had slackened a little as the enemy shifted positions to try to encircle them. When Alex reached Rashid, he grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against the rock. Why? He snarled. We trusted you. Rashid glared at him with pure hatred. Trusted me? You killed my family. Your bomb. 2 years ago. My father, my mother, my sisters. All of them. You called it collateral damage. I called it murder. Alex felt something break inside him. How many Rashids had he created? How many families had he destroyed in the name of protecting freedom? I wanted to wipe all of you out, Rashid said. But now ISIS will do it for me. A shot cracked. Rashid's body went limp. His eyes went wide. Behind Alex stood Howell with a smoking pistol. No time for talking, he said flatly. They are coming. The ISIS fighters were pushing forward now, laying down suppressive fire. There were too many of them. We need to move, Alex shouted. To the ridge, now. They began to fall back, dragging the wounded. Mills died as they moved him, and they had to leave the body. Rodriguez was barely clinging to life, but Sophie and one of the Kurds hauled him by the arms. The retreat was chaotic and bloody. 2 more Kurds were killed covering them. Jones took a round in the leg, but kept firing. When they reached the ridge, Alex looked back. The enemy was about 100 meters behind and closing. Howell, grenades. They threw everything they had left, building a wall of smoke and shrapnel. It bought them a minute. The third Humvee was still running, and they all piled in, 9 people into a vehicle made for 6. Alex jumped behind the wheel, Sophie in the passenger seat. Her face was streaked with sand and blood, none of it her own. Go, she yelled as he fired up the engine. Rounds pinged off the armor as they tore out of the kill zone. The desert swallowed their retreat, but the enemy did not pursue. The ambush had done its work. The mission was blown. They rolled back into the base 3 hours later, 5 men dead, 4 wounded. Alex filed his report over the radio, his voice flat and mechanical. Captain Jenkins promised an investigation, but Alex knew what that meant, paperwork no one would read. Sophie found him that evening by the perimeter fence, where he was smoking a cigarette, a habit he had picked up in Afghanistan and never quite shaken. You smoke? She asked, sitting down next to him. Only when people die. Then you must smoke a lot. He did not answer. They sat in silence, looking at the stars. Alex, Sophie said finally, there is something I need to tell you. Something in her voice made him tense. What? She took a deep breath, like someone about to step off a cliff. Her chest rose under the thin fabric of her t-shirt, which still held the scent of their night together, sweat, sex, and base dust. The container felt cramped, the air heavy with the smoke he exhaled as he tried to keep a lid on the anger already boiling in him like coffee over a fire. I am not just a journalist, she said quietly, though her voice shook as if every word was tearing something inside her. I have another reason to be here. It is not only about the camera and the articles. His hands clenched into fists on his knees, muscles tightening as if he were bracing for a hit. He felt the blood hammering in his temples. What reason? He spat, his voice low but right on the edge where calm turns into a storm. Sophie looked away for a moment, staring at the dirty floor where their stuff lay, his boots, her backpack, as if she were trying to find support there. After Marco died, my brother, in Raqqa, when his convoy was blown up, I started digging. Who was supplying ISIS with weapons, money, smuggling routes. I found out things governments do not want people to know. Corruption in supply chains, American companies selling through middlemen, Kurdish factions playing both sides. I thought that if I could show this, if I could document proof here on the ground, with your unit as cover. You used us. His voice went cold, like a rifle bolt at night, and he stood slowly, his whole body taut as if ready for a fight. You used my unit as cover for your own hunt. To you, we are just background extras, a way to get closer to your evidence. At first, yes, she admitted, looking up at him, something sharp and defensive in her eyes. I will not deny it. I lied about my full reason. But then I saw you were real. Not just soldiers in reports, but people. With pain, with jokes over dinner, with nights when you cannot sleep. You, Howell, with his stories about home, the other guys. And I fell in love with you. With you, Alex. That was not part of the plan. Alex flicked his cigarette into the corner, where it hissed out on the concrete, and the years of held-back rage finally tore free and showed on his face. In love, he shouted, his voice ripping through the container like a shot. He took a step toward her, his fists clenched so hard the knuckles went white. You lied to me from the first day, from the first look, from that handshake in the desert, and I actually believed you were just a journalist looking for stories, not playing your own games. I know, she raised her voice too, tears shining in her eyes, but not falling, as if she held them back by force. I know, and I am sorry, I hate myself for it, but everything that happened between us was real. That night, those kisses, when I did not lie about what I feel. That is not a lie, Alex, it is. Real, he cut her off, yelling now. You got into my bed, Sophie. You slept with me, wrapped me around your finger, and all of it was part of your plan. You took your clothes off, moaned under me, and in your head you were thinking about your evidence, about how to use me to get to Rashid or whoever the hell else. That is betrayal, pure betrayal. I opened up to you. I told you about Jacob, about Laura, about all the crap in my head, and you were just playing a role. No, she cried back, stepping closer, her face flushed with anger and tears, her hands trembling. It was not an act. That night, I wanted you because you saw me, not as a journalist, not as a civilian, as me. I did not plan to sleep with you. It happened because I could not hold back anymore. But yes, I lied about the reason I was here, and that got Mills killed, Jones wounded. 5 good men will never go home because of an ambush we did not expect. And all because we got set up, he roared, gasping for air like after a sprint, pacing the container and hitting the wall with his fist so the metal rattled. You talk about truth. Where is the truth in this, Sophie? You brought death into my unit. Rashid betrayed us for revenge, you say? You betrayed trust. You slept with me, whispered those words to me in the night, and all the while you were using it to dig deeper. How am I supposed to look my men in the eye now? How do I look at Howell? They trusted you because I said, she is with us. And you are just a spy in my bed. I am not a spy, she shouted, grabbing his arm and hanging on, her nails biting into his skin as she tried to stop him. I am a journalist who went too far, yes. I made a mistake thinking I could play this alone. But love, that is not a lie. I love you, Alex, in spite of all this crap, in spite of the blood and the lies. What do I have to do to make you believe that? Believe you? He yanked his arm free, his eyes blazing and his voice breaking into a hoarse shout. You blew everything up. Mills is dead because of your evidence. Jones might lose his leg and spend months in a hospital while his wife waits at home with their kids. Five of them, Sophie, with families, with dreams. And you stand here crying and saying, I love you, after you climbed into my bed as cover? That is worse than a bullet in the back. You did not just stab my unit. You went into my soul when I was naked and vulnerable, and you did it for your truth. She wiped her tears away with the back of her hand. Her face hardened as if a mask had dropped into place, and her eyes sharpened, her voice turning quiet and sharp like a blade. You are right. I manipulated you. But do you know how many people have died because of corruption? Because weapons end up in the wrong hands? Because of deals made in offices thousands of miles from here? I am trying to expose that. By using soldiers as bait? No. She broke off, her shoulders sagging. You are right. I crossed a line. I thought the end justified the means. But I saw your faces today. I saw you carrying bodies, and I realized I have become the same kind of monster I am chasing. Alex turned away from her. You are leaving with the first convoy out. I will tell command this is too dangerous for civilians. Alex, please. Go, Sophie, before I change my mind. She stood there for a long time, then finally left. He listened to her steps fade and felt the emptiness rush back in, the same emptiness that had followed him since Jacob died. But the story did not end there. The next morning, Howell came to Alex with news. There is a problem. One of my people found this in Rashid's things. He handed Alex a phone. On the screen was a photo of Sophie meeting a man in civilian clothes. The date stamp showed it was taken 2 days before their mission. Who is he? Alex asked. I do not know, but it was in Erbil. The man has a tattoo. I know that symbol. He is Chechen, works for a warlord who supplies weapons to both sides. Alex felt the ground shift under his feet. Sophie had not just been investigating. She had been deep inside the mess. He found her by the medical container, helping with Rodriguez. We need to talk, now. They walked to an empty hangar. Alex tossed the phone on a table. Who is he? Sophie looked at the photo, and the color drained from her face. Alex, I can explain. Who is he? His name is Ahmed. He is an informant. He works both sides, and I used him to get information. You met with a warlord, with someone who arms terrorists. To get information, to expose the network. He told me about an upcoming major shipment, and You used our mission as cover to get into the area, to be closer to your sources. Sophie did not deny it. Alex dropped onto a crate, exhaustion and disappointment pressing down on him like extra weight. Betrayal after betrayal, he said. Rashid betrayed for revenge. You for what? A story, fame? For justice, she shot back, her voice rising. Marco did not die just because of ISIS. He died because someone sold out the location of the journalists. Someone in the weapons pipeline. I swore I would find out who and make them pay. And you were ready to sacrifice my people for that? No, I never wanted anyone to die. The mission was based on real intel. I did not. But you did not tell me. You did not warn me that someone like Rashid might be compromised because you were too busy with your investigation. I did not know about Rashid. But if you had trusted me, if you had been honest from the start, we might have put the pieces together. Mills might still be alive. Sophie sat down and covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders shook. You are right, she whispered. You are right about everything. I got so focused on revenge that I forgot the real people around me. I became the monster I was after. Alex wanted to stay hard, to throw her out, to be done with her. But when he looked at her, broken and sobbing, weighed down with guilt, he saw himself. How many times had he done the same, put the mission above humanity, hidden his emotions behind tactics and orders? He reached out and placed his hand on her shoulder. "Sophie," he said softly, "revenge does not heal. It only poisons you. I know. I lived it." She lifted her head, her eyes red. "How do you let go?" she asked. "How do you stop blaming yourself?" "You do not, but you learn to live with it, and you try to be better, every single day." They sat in silence, two damaged human beings in the middle of a war neither of them really understood. "I love you," Sophie said at last. "I know I have no right to. I know I destroyed this, but it is the truth." Alex closed his eyes. His head screamed for caution, told him this was trouble he did not need. But his heart, scarred and tired as it was, wanted the warmth, the connection. "I love you too," he admitted, "but love is not enough. There has to be trust. I will do anything to earn it back." "Then we start with this," he said, lifting the phone. "You are going to give me every piece of information you have. On Ahmed, on the supply network, on everything. And we will pass it up through command. Officially." "They might bury it," she said. "Maybe. But it is the right way, not your own private crusade. Work through the system." Sophie nodded slowly. "All right, I trust you." He pulled her into a hug. She shook in his arms. "We will figure it out," he whispered, "somehow." For the rest of the deployment, Sophie was quiet. She handed over all her files to Alex, who sent them through a secure channel to Intel. There was no official response, but 2 days later a drone destroyed a weapons convoy on the Turkish border. It might have been a coincidence. It might not. The unit received orders to return to the main base in Erbil for rotation. Their mission was over. Howell and the other Kurds stayed. For them, the war had no end date. Saying goodbye was hard. Alex hugged Howell, feeling the weight of everything they had been through together. "Take care of yourself, brother," the Kurd said, "and take care of her. She is a good woman, just lost, like all of us. You take care of yourself, too. When this is over, come to the States. I will show you good food and bad television." Howell smiled. "If God wills it, my friend." The flight home was long. Alex sat next to Sophie, their fingers intertwined. They did not talk much. They did not have to. Everything had already been said. When they landed at Fort Bragg, reality hit like a punch. Alex had to see Laura and sign the divorce papers. Sophie was headed to New York and her newsroom. "What now?" she asked as they stood by the terminal exit. "I do not know," Alex answered honestly. "I have a lot to deal with. Therapy for PTSD, the divorce, figuring out who I am when I am not in uniform." "And us?" He touched her face, brushing his thumb along her cheek. "I do not want to lose you, but I cannot promise anything I cannot deliver. Not now. I am not asking for promises. I am asking for a chance. Then we take it slow. We will see each other when we are both ready. No lies. No secrets." "No lies, no secrets," she repeated. They kissed, long and gentle, with the feeling of a goodbye that was also a beginning. 6 months later, Alex sat in a small coffee shop in Raleigh, waiting. Therapy was helping. He still saw Jacob sometimes, but the images were softer, less accusing. The divorce was final but peaceful. Laura had even smiled when they signed the papers. "I want you to be happy, Alex," she had said. Jacob would want that too. He had left the Army after 20 years of service. He started working with veterans, helping them transition to civilian life. It was not a firefight, but it mattered. The bell over the door rang. Sophie walked in, her hair shorter now, something lighter in her eyes. She saw him and smiled. "Hi, soldier." "Hi, journalist." She sat across from him and took his hands. How are you? Better, a little better every day. You? My piece ran. Huge reaction. There were some arrests in the weapons pipeline. It will not bring Marco back, but it is something. I am proud of you. And I am proud of you. I heard about your work with vets. You are making a difference. They talked for hours about therapy, about dreams, about fears. It was easy and hard at the same time, like coming home after being away for a very long time. When they stepped outside, Sophie asked, "Do you think we can make this work? Do it right this time?" Alex looked at her, this beautiful, complicated, damaged woman who reminded him so much of himself. "I do not know," he said, "but I want to try. That is all I ask." They walked down the street hand in hand, two survivors of war trying to find peace. It was not a movie ending. There were no fanfares, no guarantees. But it was real. After all the lies and all the betrayal, reality was what mattered. The sand of Syria was behind them, but the scars remained. They always would. But maybe, Alex thought, scars were not just reminders of pain. They were proof that you survived, that you kept going when everything looked hopeless. And maybe that was the real victory. A year later, Alex received a letter from Howell. The Kurd wrote that the war was still going on, but there was hope. His daughter had started going to school for the first time in 4 years. There was a photo in the envelope, a little girl holding a book and smiling into the camera. "We do not fight for the sake of war," Howell wrote. "We fight for moments like this, for smiles that might never have happened." Alex showed the photo to Sophie, who now lived with him in a small house in the suburbs. They were still working on their relationship. There were hard days, arguments, moments when old ghosts came back. But they stayed. They fought for it. "She is beautiful," Sophie said, looking at the photo. "Like you," Alex replied. She smiled and leaned against him. "You have become a romantic." "No, I have just become honest." That evening, they lay in bed, wrapped in each other, listening to the rain against the windows. Alex thought about everyone he had lost, about Jacob, about Mills and the others. He thought about Rashid and the kind of pain that turns people into traitors. He thought about war that never really ends, that just moves around. But he also thought about Howell and his daughter, about Sophie and her battle for the truth, about himself and the slow healing that did not come with grand gestures, but in quiet moments like this one. The world was broken. Maybe it always had been, but as long as there were people willing to fight not only with weapons, but with love and with hope, maybe there was still a chance for something better. "Alex," Sophie whispered in the dark, "are you awake?" "No." She laughed softly. "I love you. I love you too." Simple words. But after everything they had been through, that simplicity was the greatest luxury of all. The rain kept falling, and they drifted off to sleep, two survivors who had found each other in the chaos of war and betrayal. Not perfect, not fully healed, but alive, and together. And maybe that was enough. The end.